Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
My first guest is no stranger to you. He was on the programme last summer. Seems like a long time ago now. He is a former Royal Navy microwave weapons expert and researcher. And in his time, he also worked with UK intelligence services to debrief spies who were captured during the Cold War. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome back to the programme our old friend, Dr. Barrie Trower. Barrie, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Oh, sorry, are we ready for me? Sorry, I put the phone down for 2 seconds.
You put the phone in. We're live now, my friend. How are you?
I'm okay, sir. I'm okay. Thank you very much for calling me.
It's always a pleasure. I was just saying, it's been around about 6 months since we last spoke. I think we were speaking around about mid-August. Since then, your ears might have been burning. You get a big mention in David Icke's new book, Phantom Self, where he talks a lot about smart technology and Wi-Fi technology and microwaves, and you get a very favourable mention because of your own research, which is fantastic. Barrie, since we last spoke, in terms of raising the alarm about the danger of smart technology, microwaves, Wi-Fi, what's been happening for you since we last spoke?
I've been invited to give a few lectures around the world and write a couple of papers, which I have done. I keep incredibly busy, and I'm lining myself up now for lecturing in 3 or 4 countries this spring on the same topic. It is gaining momentum, I'm pleased to say, and people around the world are now taking notice that they really do not want the volume of miscarriages and stillbirths and genetically damaged children that you are going to get from Wi-Fi. So thanks to yourself and other radio programs, the snowball is growing and we are actually getting somewhere.
Barrie, I got a tweet just before coming on air. Now, I know that tweets and Facebook are alien to you because you won't keep computers anywhere near you. I know that. And you don't have a microwave oven and all of that. But I was tweeted by a listener before coming on air, and he said, Richie, I'm trying to find the tweet, Barrie, as I'm talking to you there. I might have lost it. But he said, Richie, I had a call today from a British gas customer service person to talk about a smart meter installation. My listener tweeted me to say that he told the British gas customer service person that he wouldn't want and wouldn't have a smart meter. Apparently, Barrie, the customer service person said, not rudely, I don't think. I think as a matter of fact, you're going to have it pretty much whether you want it or not. In fact, it came from Phil Turner. Richie, just had a call from British Gas, offered me smart meter, told them no. The caller then tells me they will become mandatory. What are people going to do, Barrie, when these things become mandatory?
There is an electromagnetic magazine. It's called ESUK, Electrosensitivity UK, that cover the law and give advice on all this sort of thing. And as far as I know with smart meters, and I'm not trained in law, sir, so as far as I know with smart meters, what I have read is that if the meter is on your property, you have an absolute right to refuse it. They may try and bully you. These businesses do bully, and they're very, very good at bullying and threatening. But if the meter is on your property, you have an absolute right to refuse it. If the meter is off your property, or it is a rented property and you don't own it, or you do not have the legal right to the meter because somebody else owns it, then you can't refuse it. But what I am led to believe and what I have read is that if you own your property and the meter is on your property, you have an absolute legal right to refuse it.
We don't own the property we're in, Barrie. The future Mrs. Allen and myself, we rent a property in Manchester. A few months ago, the company who looks after the utilities, who supplies the gas, they contacted us to say that the meter was ancient, the meter in the house, they wanted to replace it. And I said to them, with what? With a smart meter? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, the meter that's in the house is only 20 years old and it's in good working order. There's nothing wrong with it. And I was on kind of shaky ground because I don't own the house. As I said, I only rent it. But they went away. I thought I'd have to, engage my landlord, who was a very nice fella, very, very good guy, to tell them, look, please, on our behalf, tell them you don't want this bloody smart meter. But anyway, it hasn't happened yet. It is an oldish meter in the on the property, the gas meter. I suppose I just wait and see what happens from here on in. We have a young audience, Barrie. We have a lot of young families. I know this because of the correspondence we get. Outline, my friend, and there's nobody better in the world than you to do this, and I really mean this. Tell people why they should be aware and why they should worry about Wi-Fi units supplying their internet in their houses and smart meters. Tell them why, Barrie. Give them the absolute, give them the facts as to why they shouldn't have these devices.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure, sir. Smart meters and all communications now, they are all Wi-Fi enabled. In other words, they all use the Wi-Fi frequencies and pulse frequencies. It has been known by government and published for well over 40 years now that the Wi-Fi frequency is known to cause a 47% miscarriage and stillbirth rate in adult women. That is known, it is published by government. If you are a child, you are, and by child I don't mean to be disrespectful to teenagers, but in biological terms, you are not fully developed. If you are a teenager or a young girl, younger than that, you can add at least another twofold, 20% increase in your chances of having a miscarriage or a stillbirth or a genetically damaged child. In other words, you could be more likely to have one of these than not. It's about 67%. That is published, it is peer-reviewed, and we are talking not of one or two papers, we are talking of thousands of research papers.
Now, Barrie, can I jump in there? For those listening to the programme who think that you and I are tinfoil hat wearing lunatics, where can people find the documentation that shows that there is such a high rate of birth defects and stillbirths from people who are exposed to this technology? Where's the evidence then? I have got the actual papers, the government papers here, which actually say that. I have also got a government paper that says that the people, and I'm going to simplify this, the population needs to be misled to protect industrial output or profit, in other words. And I have quoted these word for word in a paper which I was invited for its first reading. I was invited to read it with the emeritus professor, Martin Paul of Washington University in the United States. For its second reading, I was invited to read my paper to the Institute of Neuroscience in Germany. It has been read and successfully argued over in a Supreme Court. Now, is there a link to it online at all, Barrie? Has anybody posted this stuff online that I can put a link out there?
Oh, yeah, I can give you the website.
Fantastic. Now, I know you did last time you were on, but it's been 6 months, so give us the website again and I'll tweet it out while we're talking there.
I need to go and pick it up.
Go and pick it up, yeah. Take your time, Barrie. Plenty of time.
Just 2 seconds and I'll go and pick it up.
Take your time, my friend. We've all the time in the world. 28 minutes to the top of the hour. Former Royal Navy weapons expert and researcher, and he was, by the way, Dr. Barrie Trower, PhD, is on the line to us from his home. We're talking about the dangers of Wi-Fi. Now, there's a number of recent studies done by, let's say, former GPs, working within the independent media on the effects of Wi-Fi on children and on teenagers, and it's devastating. And many of you listening to this programme will be reading or have read or in the middle of Phantom Self. Get on there. Are you back, Barry? Good stuff, you're back.
Okay, sir?
Yeah, go ahead. So what's the website then? And I'll type it as you're telling me.
Okay, now you're talking to someone that only has a fountain pen and a bottle of ink.
That's fine. Old school. Go ahead.
Right, I'll run through this. It's quite a lengthy one and looks complicated. Okay, it's all lowercase. Right, it's HTTP.
I'll tell you what, Barry, you've only got to give us the www bit. Just give us that bit.
Well, there isn't a www. It's HTTP and then 2 dots, one above the other, and then 2 forward slashes.
Right.
And then SSITA, sugar, India Tango Alpha, .org.uk.
.org.uk.
//
the
word articles with an S.
Lovely.
A hyphen, like a takeaway sign.
Great.
The word and.
Another
hyphen.
Lovely.
Studies with an S.
Studies.
// Yeah. Now, if you dial that into your computer, you'll get through to a Safe Schools Information Technology website.
Tweeted that out there, Barry, and that's worth the effort because I've seen that before. I've seen these documents.
Yeah.
And it's,
okay. Then when you get through, you click on to Articles and Studies.
Click on to Articles and Studies, yeah.
And then go down to number 15.
Brilliant stuff.
And then 15, that is my paper, Wi-Fi, a thalidomide in the making.
Fantastic, Barry. It's all there, folks. I've tweeted it out there. And Paul said that British Gas has just replied to a tweet he sent him saying it's a government scheme, it's going to happen by 2020. I'll tell you what, Barry, this is scary because my friend and colleague Jean-Anne Crowley in Ireland, who's listening to this now, said that it's come to her attention that the Irish government also wants to have it introduced in Ireland and rolled out by 2020. So obviously this is the European Union thing. And she's also referred to a TED talk given by a chap who talked about becoming gravely ill because there was a bank of mobile phone masts outside his flat complex which completely screwed with his health. So all the evidence is there, Barry. Now you, of course, my friend, throughout the time you've been blowing the whistle on this, you have endeavoured to get mainstream media interest in this, but you've not had much success, Barry.
I haven't, and I know the reason. There was a gentleman at a conference I spoke just before Christmas, and he is a CBE, Commander of the British Empire, and he actually stood up at this conference and said, this is the reason. And when he went through, it was the Times, he went through the Times newspaper, and he said, if you look at this, almost a half of the volume of the entire newspaper is paid advertising from the communications industry. There is so much money bouncing around from this industry that people are going for the money rather than preventing the suffering in several years' time.
Do you agree with David Icke? And of course you don't have to. You have your own opinion, your own point of view. But do you agree with his assertion that one of the very sinister aspects of all this is the deliberate manipulation of our bodies, of our biological selves? That is one of the big plans for us going forward. Do you see that side of it, Barry?
Well, I can agree with that because it's either deliberate or the government are incredibly naive and stupid, which they're not, because they know exactly what's going on, because they've published it. And the pulse frequencies within the Wi-Fi frequencies are known to affect neurological and physiological processes. So once this is up and running, and once you have smart meters and cell phone towers and everything, and you gridlock the country, it is only a matter, and this isn't science fiction, this is fact, and this has been published, and it's known to happen. Once you have the whole country gridlocked with Wi-Fi technology, as smart meters are, it is only a matter of pushing a few buttons to change people's behavior. It is as simple as that.
And as I said, you are quoted in a very important chapter in David's recent book, a chapter called Transphantomism, about that very eventuality, Barrie, which is absolutely terrifying. You, obviously being a man of science and a man who's worked for the government and worked for the Navy, you probably better understand more than anybody how so many people are reluctant to consider this and say I get it all the time, I'm sure you get it. They say, I know you're not online, of course, but this is crazy, crappy conspiracy theory, Richie. It's crazy. And I love guys like you, Barrie, because you're a guy who's been a system man. You've come from the system and have seen all of this. What is it going to take, do you think, for people to understand that this is happening, that it's serious, that the implications of it are... I can't find the words to describe how terrifying. What do we need to do to wake people up to this?
We need publicity. And the problem is that, like smoking, like BSE, mad cow disease, like asbestosis, lead in petrol, like all of those, the industries that run these are beyond super rich. The governments that we have are immensely corrupt, and it is not difficult, and they use the same tactics every single time, and they work, and they're using it now. It is not difficult for a corrupt government and a super powerful industry to jump in bed together. It is not difficult for them to get a few prominent professors or university people, particularly those looking for knighthoods or to get their children into Eton or somewhere. It is not difficult to get people like that, and they only have to do one thing, which is cause confusion. They don't have to say Wi-Fi is safe. They can't, because it isn't. All they have to do is cause confusion, and all they have to do is say, well, our experiments don't show this, or our experiments show something different, and that's all they have to do. And you could still do it today. You could still find people who say that our experiments show that smoking is beneficial. And that's all they have to do is cause confusion.
You know, Barrie, unsurprisingly, there's a huge interest in this. Sean McDonald, how you doing, Sean? Richie, there is a mental health unit nearby that has a mobile mast situated within 200 yards of the hospital. Is this by design, asks Sean. Barrie might have an answer for that in a second. I want to say hi to Paul Jackson. Thanks for your tweets, Paul, and Martin Houston as well. Hugh Bertes says, always follow the money. All roads lead to Rome. For example, the Rothschilds again. He says, Martin was back on to say, if this is an EU directive, it is all the more reason why we should leave the European Union. Martin Noakes was on to say, how are you, Martin? So they've known about the pregnancy issues of Wi-Fi for 40 years. I believe it's deliberate. It's Agenda 21. This is a bit disturbing. Alex was on to say, thanks, Alex. We were forced to get our smart meter back in September when I was asleep, says Alex. So I look forward to reading up on this properly. I have tweeted out Barry's paper from 2013. It's there, folks, for you to see now. Here's a question from Laura. First time email from Laura. Laura, how are you? Let us know where you're listening, Laura. I'd like to know where people are. Nice to hear from you. Richie, ask Barrie, is one of the reasons why people are so tired and so lethargic and so fatigued at work every day because they are surrounded by this Wi-Fi technology at home, because they leave it on when they go to bed, and then they are surrounded by it at work? Barrie, I guess it's a short answer to that one.
The easy answer is yes, and I'll qualify that with just a couple more sentences there, is that it is known that when the Wi-Fi or any microwaves are penetrating your body, the most dangerous time is when you are asleep. And I won't go into the physiological explanation here because it's quite lengthy and complicated, but it is known and published that if you sleep in a microwave field, when you wake up, your immune system can be as much as 40% less than it should be when you wake up. And it is, and this came about many years ago from people who did night work. They found that the light, which affects a part of the brain, the same as microwaves, affected their bodies, and their immune systems suffered. Hence, a lot of women who do night work get breast cancer a lot. Yes, your immune system, when you wake up, is around 40% less than it should be, and of course that has a knock-on effect right round the body. For the skeptics,
Barrie, and by the way, folks, if you're just joining the programme, Dr. Barrie Trower is on the line to us. It's great to have him on. For the skeptics, Barrie, how do you measure the immune system as a percentage, for example? How would you say, how do you do that?
I need to just correct you, sir. I do know that some countries have made me a doctor, but not this country. And
not in this country, okay.
I tend not to use it in case it's illegal for me to acknowledge that in this country.
Understood, Barrie. Understood. I appreciate that.
Measuring
the immune
system is suffering. Generally, and it's the first symptoms. It's generally you are more lethargic. You get your iron is depleted, which microwaves do. It's called the Fenton reaction. Your iron is depleted, which means you lack oxygen, which means you lack energy. You will get more coughs, more colds, longer colds, and your body will generally just be run down, permanently run down.
Okay, but measuring as a percentage, how do you do that? How do you measure? How could you say, well, you're 40% down your immune system? How would you guess that?
Well, everybody is different. I'm in my 70s, and my body being 40% down would not be the same as a 35-year-old fit man who was 45% down.
Sounds good.
It's 40% of your current level of fitness, and there are as many current levels of fitness as there are people listening.
Sounds good, Barrie. For a bit of balance, well, I read out all the tweets anyway, no matter what they say. Derek, how are you? Or is it D? Richie, I think all technology can be used for good and bad, but I think internet and communication devices are a good thing, says D. Now, I am going to get into transhumanism briefly with Barrie in a second. Just read a couple of other tweets there. 14 minutes to the top of the hour. Nikki was on to say, how are you, Nikki? Good to hear from you. Richie, when the electric company or the utility company comes around regarding smart meters, I'll be telling them I suffer from electromagnetic syndrome. They can do one, she says. Scott came on to say, I'm glad I now switch off all Wi-Fi and phones in my house before going asleep. That's good, that. If you can do that and you can remember to do that, I recommend it. Marco says, technology generally serves the few, i.e. the controllers, rather than the many. So, Barrie, the theory that's been out there, when I say out there, I mean in the world for a number of years, is that there is an agenda to merge us with technology, to pursue the transhumanist agenda, to put technology and humans together and insert technology into the body to manipulate us. Where are you on that, Barrie?
Well, you're absolutely right. This industry, it started off with actually quite a good idea, where you would have a cell phone in your car, and if a lady broke down on a country road, she could use it in a car to call the RAC or somebody, and that was good. But it has advanced so fast and so quickly. What we now have is a runaway train, and it was never ever designed to be used by pregnant women. Only once if your car breaks down. It was never designed to be used by children ever, and they seem to have taken over the whole industry. And as I say, the problem we have now is that so many people are making so much money. It is an unstoppable train. And the only way around this is, well, there are two ways. If you must have your computers and your technology, that's fine, but use fiber optic cable. Don't have Wi-Fi in your house. Just have fiber optic cable going straight into the machine, and you can have all your toys. And the other thing that the gentleman said, which is very sensible, turn everything off when you're sleeping, and whatever you do, don't use it if you are a child or you are pregnant.
Barrie, here's a question for you now, out of left field. And it really is out of left field. But we ask everything here. This is from Dave Mallon. Dave, how are you? Richie, does Barrie have any view on Dr. Judy Wood's suggestion that the Twin Towers may have been taken down by directed energy weapons? Barrie, for what it's worth, I don't believe and never have believed the official version of what happened on September the 11th, partly because the guy who investigated it on behalf of the US government said that the whole investigation was set up to fail, and much more besides. But what about the idea that directed energy weapons exist that could do that to buildings? No better man than you to ask, as you researched all of this in your career. What do you think?
If you're asking me, is it possible, the answer is yes. In fact, a gentleman called Tesla, he invented directed energy weapons, in the 1800s, and they worked. It was on his death, his documents were picked up by the military, the American military. His documents were picked up and haven't been seen since. The latest directed energy weapon, believed to be based on Tesla's work, is HAARP in Alaska. So if you're asking me, is it possible to bring down the Twin Towers by directed energy? Of course it is, with no trouble at all. If you're asking me, did that happen? I don't know.
Fair enough, Barrie. Jane says, Richie, thank Barrie, because since hearing him first on this programme or another programme, I've been turning off the Wi-Fi every night. He did say, though, Jane, and he's right, that if you can use fibre optic cables, you're better off. Gio says, it's okay me trying to turn my Wi-Fi off, but what about the effects of the neighbour's Wi-Fi? Great question, Barrie.
Yeah, and I mention this a lot, and they're referenced on my paper, which is free. My report is totally free. There's an organisation which is a charity. It is a non-profit organisation with many world-leading experts on it. And I don't use the word expert lightly. It's called ESUK, Electrosensitivity UK. They have a directory of several hundred paints, films, wallpapers, all sorts of things. There is a directory of things that you can do to put on your wall to protect you from neighbours. You only have to go onto their website and look for their directory. It may even be free, I don't know. But ESUK keep a directory. They also keep all the legal information up to date on smart meters and everything else. And as I say, it's a non-profit organisation. If you subscribe, I think they do 4 magazines a year, but they are a legal person's dream because they speak in Janet and John where you stand and what you can do and what you can quote.
Brilliant, Barrie. Brilliant stuff. Just before we do go, somebody I've spoken to in the past who's a lovely guy, Peter Parker, whom hasn't spoken with us for quite a long time. I must get Peter back on the programme. I know you've worked with Peter. Peter's a big fan of your work and very supportive of what you do. I know Peter is absolutely terrified about the rollout of Wi-Fi equipment in schools all over the country. Now, this isn't new. It's been, rolled out and it's being installed in schools for a long time. Peter is terrified about what that's going to do to a whole generation of children. Are you as terrified as he is?
I am, sir. And in my paper, I've said that of the schoolgirls now, we know that over 60% are going to have miscarriages or stillbirths or genetically damaged children, over 60% of the school children being Wi-Fi'd. Wow. But, I mean, the good news is over half of the planet now is either taking Wi-Fi out or not putting it in. It is only the Western countries, basically Europe, where we are governed by just 19 people that I can see on a list. And these people are in for what they can get. They are corrupt. And I won't even mention some of the names that some of the world scientists are calling them, in case I offend people. But
don't worry about that.
We have about 19 people, and they are the only people that the Western governments are allowed to go to and ask, and they are saying, despite the European directive that said ban Wi-Fi from schools, they overread the European Parliament, and they are saying put Wi-Fi in schools. And if there is one thing I could call for internationally, and I will at every conference, and that is at the end of all this, when the bubble bursts, if we could have a Nuremberg-style trial for these 19 people to be tried for the harm that they have done.
Barrie, it's always great to have you on. Zana in New Zealand says, can we get Barrie down to New Zealand to give a talk? I suppose, Zana, if you can find the money to fly him down there, because it's not cheap to go on a trip like that to New Zealand.
I've done Australia twice.
You've been in Australia a couple of times,
New Zealand isn't that far. I work totally for free. It will only cost you my travelling expenses and a room if somebody will put me up.
Zana, you've heard that. Find a few people to raise $1,000 or $1,500 to fly Barrie down, give him his meals and give him some place to stay, and you've got an absolute verifiable expert to talk to people in New Zealand. That sounds like the plan. Barrie, stay in touch. I must call you privately and give you a number for me, because I did say this to you before, stay in touch, and then I never gave you a number because I forget that you don't have an online presence. So I must do that. Always a pleasure to have you on the programme. It's an honour, and thanks for doing what you do and educating people as to the dangers of this technology. You're a superstar, Barrie. Look after yourself.
Yeah, and maybe you'll have me on your programme again in the future, sir.
Barrie, you can come on anytime you want. You have an open door.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Look after yourself. Bye for now, Barrie. Bye now.